Hey people, it's Teal Gamer here with a quick Diablo 3 video. Well, I don't want to say it's quick, but it's going to be relatively fast because what I'm basically going over in this video are 30 things that really need to be fixed within the game because they either don't fit the way the game is programmed on specific levels and how things are going, and or they simply just go against the game's programming itself. So, without further ado, I'm going to get right into this list. And just as a quick statement, obviously there's going to be people who completely disagree with stuff on this list, but those are the trolls I'm going to ignore because deep down inside, every single person that's played this game has had an issue with something I'm going to go over. It's that simple. So deep down, even though you say you don't want, there's nothing wrong with this or whatever it is, that deep down inside you full well know that there's a difference between Blizzard making a Rift hard or the game hard and then just being stupid with it because of the way it's programmed because it's an inconsistency. So, without further ado, right now I'm going to get right into the list, starting with number 1. Now, I'm also reading from this list, so like I said, agree with me or don't agree with me doesn't change the fact that this stuff needs to be fixed. Number 1, illusionists. Since illusionists copy everything the original has, then every time a copy of that illusion, the original, has been killed, it should also be leaving behind a progression orb simply because the original does. Now, for those people who want to argue that, you're dumb because it's very simple. An illusionist copies the original. If the original drops a progression orb or an orb of progression for the Rift, then every copy should also be doing that. Because they copy the elite's powers, but they can't copy the progression orb, that it goes against the way it's programmed. Either copy everything or don't copy anything at all. Number 2 is one of people's most pet peeves in this entire game, and that is the Juggernaut affix. This is what people only look at the Juggernaut fix needs to be nerfed. Or sorry, the Juggernaut affix needs to be nerfed. Here is the actual whole thing with this. The Juggernaut affix either needs to be nerfed, or the elite that has it should not have any other affixes, and it should not have any minions to go along with it. It should just be a yellow elite by itself with nothing else except for Juggernaut on it. And it should also be giving off 5 progression orbs or 5 Rift progression orbs. Because as it stands now, there is literally no benefit to attempting to kill an elite. On top of that, it has a ton of minions around it. It already is bad enough that you can't kill it. It's hard to kill in the first place because it's immune to crowd controlling effects. But it shouldn't have minions around it. And nor should it be able to do anything else. So, that's that. Number 3. Yellow elites should ever have more than 5 minions. It is inexcusable to have 7 minions on one yellow elite, 13 on another one, 9 on another one, and then sometimes there's only 4 or 5 of them on another. Then no yellow elite should ever have more than 5 minions attached to it. Period. That's it. It's done. Number 4 also follows into number 3. Elite minions should not ever have any affixes on them at all. It's bad enough that the yellow has the affixes, but when you have 8 minions around, all with affixes on them that the elites have, as well as multiple affixes, that's a freaking problem. You already have an elite with a bunch of affixes. Why the hell should the minions have them as well? The minions are just an additional thing. Now, I'm not saying that the minions shouldn't have extra health or anything like that. I'm saying the minions should not have any powers on them at all, and they should just be an extra enemy. They should be no different than just a regular enemy in there with a little bit more health, and that's it. Okay. This one is a real pet peeve of mine, and that is on number 5. All elite effects need to stop existing once the elite that activated or cast it is dead. So if an elite activates an arcane beam and you kill that elite, the arcane beam should automatically disappear. It should not be lingering on. And the reason why I bring this up is simply because A lot of elite affixes disappear as soon as the elite is done. So why the hell are the rest of them hanging around? Either make them all hang around or don't make any at all. So that's something else that needs to be fixed. Number 6 is a dead given. Arcane beams should never be going through walls. If you can't shoot through a wall, then neither should an arcane beam be going through a wall. This means elites with the Waller affix you should never have to dodge an arcane beam through one of those walls or from a wall behind the door either. Simple as that. All right, that was number 6. Number 7, this is a dead given as well. When a main yellow elite dies, all minions associated with it also should instantly die. There's no reason that if the game is gonna produce a yellow elite and there's a bunch of minions that are associated with it, that's basically the same. That's keeping that. The way you look at it is that yellow elite is keeping those minions alive. Kill the main yellow elite and all the other minions should be dead. Okay. That brings into number 9, which is kind of the same thing as, number 8. Number 8 is kind of the same thing as number 7. Number 7 was the elite stuff. Okay, so number 7, when a yellow elite dies, all minions associated with it need to die as well. All right. Number 8, all enemies with the health link affix need to die when any one of them dies. So if you have 3 elites and all 3 of them are health linked, that means if you kill one of them, the other 2 should immediately die because they all share a health bar. So when one elite on that bar has been dead, then the other 2 can't exist because they all share the same health bar. That doesn't mean when one gets killed, 2 others take the health bar over. That means they should all have the same exact health bar. So when one dies, they all die, so you only need to kill one of them. The other 2, 1 or 2, should never be hanging around because they should not have separate health bars. That's what health link means. All right. Number 9 is also a dead given. Elite packs should not ever separate from each other. That means one of the elites should not follow you down the map while 2 remain behind. If one teleports, they all need to teleport as a group because they're considered an elite pack, not just a bunch of elites. And I bring the focus on to Bane of the Powerful. Bane of the Powerful literally states when you kill an elite pack. Doesn't say when you kill an elite or anything else. It requires you to kill every elite in the pack. So, under that context, the game needs to require all elites remain linked together no matter where they're going, which means one of them shouldn't be hiding behind a rock, one of them shouldn't be across the map while the other 2 are down there. They all need to remain together as a pack, hence the term elite pack. All right. Number 10. Yellow elites should only have 3 affixes, and blue elites should only have 4 affixes. This is inexcusable. First of all, it's inexcusable to have yellow elites with 9 minions around them that have like 5 affixes to them. That's ridiculous. It's already bad enough you have minions around, but you don't need them all to have affixes. And like I said, minions shouldn't be having an affix anyway. They should just be minions, and that's it. They should have no special powers. Only the main boss does. And this is one of the main reasons why I say if you kill the main boss, every minion associated should be dead. Because they're all kind of attached in the same way Health Link is. All right. This one really pisses me off. This one is one of my this is really fucking annoying. Only elites that have the fast affixed to them should ever be able to move fast. There are entirely way too many enemies that move at blazing speed without having the fast affix. There are minions that will fly up the friggin' map, and yet they don't have any affix that allows them to do that. So the point here is, even after you slow them down, they're still flying up the map following you. I have literally hit a speed pylon, flew up the map, and there's Lucani Huntresses flying up the friggin' map at me. They don't have the fast affix. It's inexcusable for an enemy without the fast affix to be moving that fast. So that needs to be fixed. All right, next is number 12. Enemies, all of them, doesn't matter whether it's an elite or not, all enemies need to stop being able to fly off the friggin' map and through walls, period. I don't give a shit if you're flying, if the enemy has the ability to fly or not. No enemy should be able to fly off the map because you can't hit them when they're away off of the map. On top of that, you can't hit them in the walls. And if you can't hit them in the walls, they shouldn't be flying through the wall. So you keep it so they can all be killed in the vicinity without going out of the range or having some cheese tactic that they do. Okay, so number 13. This is another one that extremely pisses me off. And this is one of these things where gamers will say, well, you just can't handle it being hard. No, this has nothing to do with it being hard. This has to do with being so fucked up it unbalances the way the rifts operate. Every elite affix needs to be applied randomly instead of just the same 6 damn affixes over and over and over again. This game has over 20 elite affixes that the game can choose from. So it is completely 100% inexcusable for 99% of the elites in the upper greater rifts to all be arcane, shield, walled, or whatever the fuck it is for those same 6 things. If there are over, all of the elite powers need to have the ability to be applied equally and not this same 6 crap. 14 also applies here as well, because number 14 is all the enemies in the game also need to be randomly chosen for the rifts instead of just the same 6. Okay? The game has more than just Lucani Huntresses, Bogan Trappers, Tusked Bogans, Lucani and Witherbane Huntresses, and Grotesques. The game has more enemies in it than just them, especially Blood Clan Spearmen and whatever they are. The game has more than just those enemies in it. So why is it only those 6 types of enemies or whatever it is showing in the upper elites? All of the enemies in the entire game need to be applied randomly. So these same 6, this needs to be fixed. Okay. That brings to number 15, which is kind of the same thing. Greater rift layouts need to be nerfed they need to be friggin' nerfed, okay? It needs to include all areas, not just the same friggin' 4. This enclosed corridor cave crap over and over and over again on every upper level needs to friggin' end. It seriously does. If the game has more areas in it than just what those are happening. So the fact is, they need to fix this to include for the Rift to be able to produce any area in the game. And they need to remove the ability for the game to produce the same levels over and over again throughout multiple Rifts multiple times in a row. That's a broken aspect. All right. That brings to number 16, which follows along with that. Doors don't belong in rifts, okay? In a rift, you should not have to open a door or break a door down, period. That is ridiculous to even have that happen. It slows rift progression and has no relevance to anything. And on top of that, wasting time opening a door has a chance to get you killed, which it shouldn't be doing. Okay. Next. Elite, so number 17, elite powers. The frequency of them needs to be nerfed, and they should only be happening every 10 seconds with the count starting only after the effect ends. It is absolutely friggin' ridiculous to have an elite power trigger frozen every 3 seconds. It's frozen, frozen, frozen. That's ridiculous. You don't even have time to do anything. So this has nothing to do with being hard. This just has to do with being stupid. Okay? Even 8 seconds would be fine. But for the elite powers to continually trigger off every 3 seconds so you can't even stand still long enough to even do anything isn't hard. That's just stupid. All right, so let me continue here. Number 18. There are certain affixes that should never ever be paired together. I don't care what it is. An example, Waller and Shield should never be allowed to be on the same elite. Those two affixes should never be allowed to be on the same elite. Same thing with Arcane and Wall. If they're gonna allow Arcane beams to go through walls, then they shouldn't be on Wallers. It's just ridiculous how you can't hit an Arcane beam Waller, but they can hit you because of their Arcane beams. That's completely redundant. If you can't shoot through the wall, then the Arcane beams shouldn't be going through the wall either. On top of that, Wallers and Shield, having Waller affix and a Shield affix is literally the same thing. It's ridiculous to even have both of those happen on the same enemy. Either pick the Waller or the Shield. Don't pick both. Again, this has nothing to do with being hard. This has to do with being stupid. Because a wall is a shield. There's no reason to have it double shielded. Alright, next. Number 19. All enemies on a level of a rift should all be the same category of enemy and should not have 1 or 4 enemies that don't even fit the category on the level in various places. For example, if you've gone halfway through the level of a rift and have not encountered any grotesques, that means there should be no grotesques on the level at all. Having a grotesque near the end of the level so it explodes in that is retarded. Bottom line, it doesn't belong there. It's like putting a piece of chocolate in a vegetable display. It doesn't fit and it doesn't belong. Now, number 20. All shaman and mages, those are the fire mages, the fallen shamans, they need to have their friggin' health nerfed. I cannot count the number of times. It's so damn annoying how you have a pile of enemies with a couple of shamans in there. You'll shoot trillions of damage into the crowd, and every enemy will be dead, and the shamans will have barely taken any friggin' damage. They need to have their damn health nerfed. It's ridiculous that goes on. Next is 21. This is another annoyance. Any enemy that can summon other enemies. An example, Fallen, Dark Summoner. Any Fallen, like the Fallen Conjurers, the Fallen Shamans. Dark Summoner or Foul Conjurers. Mage-type enemies need to stop being able to block being hit with a summoning beam. I cannot count the number of times where I have piled trillions of damage at a summoner and I have not hit them because the beam stops my hits. That's bullshit. That's broken. A beam cannot stop that much damage, and yet it does. Alright. This one is a pet peeve of pretty much everybody's. Number 22. Since Rift Guardians can follow you from room to room in a rift, then number 1, the Rift Guardian shouldn't even be spawning way across the map and make you go looking for it. Okay, that's the first thing. And 23 is also part of this, which is Rift Guardian should not teleport directly on top of you. Okay, if they can follow you from room to room to room, the reason I brought this up is because I read on the forum, it's like, well, Rift Guardians need an area to spawn in. That's bullshit, because if Rift Guardian, once it's locked onto you, can follow you from room to room to room, that means it can fight in there. So trying to say it needs an area to spawn is bullshit, because if it followed you into the room, it sure as hell can fit. So it's inexcusable for a Rift Guardian to be able to follow you room to room to room, and then when it spawns, be spawning across the map because it doesn't have room to fit in the room, but yet it can follow you in there. It's ridiculous. And it also should never make you go looking for it. So, and on top of that, it's funny how when you go looking for it, you find it, it can teleport directly on top of you, even if you're at the beginning of the map. You shouldn't have to engage it. It should automatically be placed where you are. There's no excuse for not having room is not an excuse. Again, because it can follow you from room to room to room. Alright. Next is 24. This is another piss off of mine. This one fucking gets me. Enemies of a type need to have the same exact damage output throughout the entire damn rift. The damage output from these friggin' things should stop changing. And here is an example of what I'm talking about. If you're at full health and a Lucani Huntress or Witherbane Huntress leaps onto you and doesn't kill you, then none of them in the entire level should be able to kill you when you're at full health. Because the first one couldn't kill you, then none of them should be able to. It's inexcusable how you don't get killed by one of them, but for some random reason down along the line, when you're at full health in the same exact situation, one jumps on you, all of a sudden you're just dead? No, that's broken and needs to be fixed because the damage output on these enemies seemed to change. It's almost like since it couldn't kill you the first time, it doesn't like that. Let's jack up its damage and kill them. That's broken. I'm sorry, it just is. The same applies with fucking mortar. If 4 mortars don't kill you with a direct impact while at full health, then you should not at all, ever, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, be killed from mortar with any enemy that has only hit you twice in the entire rift, no matter where they are. So mortar enemies should never be able to kill you. If they can't kill you hitting you once, then they should never be able to kill you at all throughout the entire rift, no matter whenever you encounter them. And the same thing with Witherbane and, Lucani Huntresses. All right. Number 25. The Nightmare Affix. Nightmare Affix should never be triggered when you hit an enemy with an attack. That is absolutely stupid. I can understand Thorns, but not Nightmare. Okay, so what you have here is if an enemy hits you with Nightmare, that I get. But you should not hit an enemy and have the Nightmare trigger on you because you hit it, especially with a ranged attack. That is absolutely stupid. You're not even... melee I would get, because Thorns operate off of melee. But if you do ranged attack, there's no possible way the affix can actually affect you. Now, if the enemy hits it, that affix goes through the attack with that. That makes sense. But when you hit an enemy that you're not connected with the attack on an enemy that has an affix and then the affix triggers, that's broken mechanics. All right. This one is just more of a preference, but I still think it needs to be addressed and needs to be fixed. Every level of, and this is 26, every level of a greater rift should be required to have at least one pylon on it. I cannot count the number of times where you're going through and you have all these stupid ass enemies against you because it's like you're fighting at a distance, so Blizzard had to jack up the amount of mortar in it to get you to stop fighting at a distance because they want to make it unfair like that. That you should have at least one pylon. If Blizzard's gonna put the game in the fashion so it gets around what you're doing by tripling the amount of stuff that would actually harm you, and then putting it on 99% of the enemies, then you should have at least one backup for that. They should balance it off. Okay, number 27. Bounties. This one I could go either way on, but it's bad enough bounties take forever to find and get to sometimes. But you shouldn't have to go looking for them. So in that regard, a player should be able to teleport directly to the bounty that needs to be done and not just the map the bounty is on. So if I'm going to go do a bounty and I find the map it's on, I should have the option of going directly to where the bounty is. If you have a bounty that you need to, free 5 enemies, all 5 enemies, you should be able to teleport to all 5 of those enemies. You shouldn't have to run around the friggin' map that's huge that has these things on, only to find one is at the end of the map, and then you have to find the other ones at the other end of the map. I know that the whole point of that is to explore the map. That I get. But when you're dealing with bounties, it's bad enough that they have them spread out so far sometimes at the end of a map that there's no reason that they shouldn't allow you to teleport to them. No reason. So that really should be changed as well. Number 28. This one really needs to be addressed. Enemies that explode or also have the molten affix on them. Grotesques, accursed that shed shitloads of poison. If they explode, They should kill anything caught in the explosion radius, not just you. That includes all enemies, because it's something that the enemy itself has, so it shouldn't not affect other enemies. It should affect them all. So, like I said, if a grotesque explodes and there's a few enemies in there, those enemies need to die or take damage from the explosion. Okay. Number 29. This one is really broken, and it has to do with the Necromancer's Frozen Lands ability. I'm sorry, but when Frozen Lands is activated, all enemies in it freeze. However, it does not shut down elite powers from happening or activating, and it doesn't freeze in place any elite powers that are already in the progress of doing it. On top of that, it doesn't freeze all incoming projectiles from enemies outside the range of Frozen Lands. And the enemies, like a curse, still explode into a poison mess, and when grotesques are killed, they still explode. Frozen Lands needs to shut down all elite powers from happening, freeze every elite power that's already in progress, and freeze all incoming projectiles from any enemy that's shooting shit from the inside out, such as wasps, ranged skeletons, anything. And on top of that, a curse should not be able to turn into an exploded poison mess, and grotesque should not be exploding. And the reason that I say that is because if all enemies freeze dead, stop solid when it's activated, then nothing else should be able to be done either. If an curse is going to explode, it needs to wait to it should be programmed to wait until after Frozen Lands is done. Because if you've frozen the accursed, I know the ability for the accursed is to explode, but if the accursed is stopped dead, that means it shouldn't be allowed to explode either. The explosion should also stop dead. And again, any enemies that are outside the range of that are shooting projectiles into you should have their projectiles stopped as well. Frozen Land needs to stop and cease everything in the radius of it while it's going on. That would be the definition of Frozen Lands. This shit about grotesque being still exploding, or when you're throwing corpse lances around and there's a bunch of accursed and you're standing there, you need to stand still to get that entire damage bonus. If you have 15 accursed exploding and turning poison and you stand still in that, you're dead. So the fact is, if things are stopped dead, enemies are stopped from moving in Frozen Lands, then Frozen Land needs to stop everything, including shit that's in progress and stuff that would have interfered with what you're doing. You should be able to completely stand still and you activate Frozen Lands without having to worry about having to move. And that's it. So if Thunderstorm is in the middle of being activated, it needs to stop right there and not be able to finish. So you should be able to stand in it without getting hurt because it's not activated. So how the fucking Frozen Lands be Frozen Lands and only work and only apply it part of it? That doesn't make any sense. It should affect everything. All right. Number 30 is one of the worst things I fucking hate in this game. And that is the amount of jumping enemies that exist. Winged Assassins, Lucani Huntresses, Witherbane Huntresses, things like that. In flame-throwing enemies, any enemy like that, smoldering constructs, fallen fire mages, or any of this other shit, the amount of them need to be fucking nerfed. It is inexcusable to go into a fucking map and have 25 fire mages in one area all shooting shit at you while you're trying to freaking kill an elite pack. That's not hard. That's plain out stupid. To top it off, the jump and throw distances that these Lucanis fucking have is absolutely fucking absurd. There is no way in hell a Lucani should be able to throw a firebomb from completely off screen to hit you when it's 40 to 50 yards away from you with deadly accuracy, and then on top of that be able to jump that distance. That is inexcusable and broken. That doesn't make it hard. That is just stupid programming. And so that's basically the list of 30 things that need to be fixed that are completely broken. And again, whether or not you disagree with me or not doesn't change the fact that deep down inside, everybody knows this entire list is accurate. Everybody knows that. It's not gonna it's obviously not gonna change anything, but the point here is that it just all this shit needs to be fixed. It's as simple as that. So anyway, this is TL Gamer signing off. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll be on again at some point. And I'm getting really tired. I really need to go to bed. And I always try to promote safe, safe streaming. Tell people if you're tired, you really should go to bed. So that's about the extent of it. Steel Gamer signing off. Take care. Thanks for stopping by.